So, taking forward our artifacts theme, last week we did a theme with the box, right? So, that gives you an idea of how to have fun with packaging. And I mean, just with packaging, right from the 40s, 50s design all across the world, you could find lots of different types of packaging design to illustrate. The box that we chose was just one simple basic cube, and you will find lots of such cubes, especially with tea and coffee boxes or things like that. So, taking that a little further, I want to expand the cube idea into appliances. That's why today we are going to try making these vintage toasters. They don't have to be vintage, but I just enjoy making vintage design because it's just so crafted. It's so beautifully made that illustrating that becomes a little more fun for us. If you look at all vintage products across countries, you'll see that there are a lot of interesting cultural things that come up in these appliances also, based on, of course, the eating habits of the country. So sometimes, like maybe more English speaking or English immigrant countries would have a toaster like this. But then you have the Europeans or the East European side where the toasting method is different, so they would have something else. Breads are different, so how to cook the bread is different. So if you just take even one item of food, say, and say what are the appliances related to this, you will find like a whole story behind it. So these uh, appliances, I'll just go over them. So this is like a similar kind of object like our box. Sorry, not this, but it has a different identity. So if we take this further, our toaster is just another form of the same thing. So what I want you to start noticing is that you can take any one form and imagine all sorts of things in that. Now, if I were to take something like this, I think you could easily imagine this also as one of those VW vans because they often had coloring like this. So, I keep saying that everything in the world can be illustrated if you know how to make the basic forms, and a cube or a cuboid of this nature happens to be one basic form. Now, this is something I found amazing how they have. This is such a beautifully uh, jeweled piece. I don't know how old this is, but everything from the buttons to the little knobs over here on the side, I don't even know whether they're just for function or what. And another thing is, I don't know whether this is a stove top or an electric. I can't see the wires. I expect that it is electric because there's a coil running through behind the toast. But imagine there's a hinge with which you open this door and the toast is just popped in over here. So cute. And then when you open it, you only see the coil. The coil is revealed. If you want to see more of these pictures, you can go onto my Pinterest board on art class references. I've already pinned this, and you might be able to find more of these where the entire appliance is open from both sides. And then you have something like this. Imagine what beauty it brings to the kitchen having a toaster like this. I wish I could find a way to paint my appliances like that. So, what we have now is all these very basic. This is it, this is the raw metal. You don't need any more beauty. This is okay, fine, not raw metal. We'll just put some enamel on it. But this was like, yes, you want to have this. If you don't want to toast, doesn't matter. At least it is going to beautify your kitchen. Now, the difference between the first three, the fifth one, and this one is obviously the shape. Here we have a nice box-like shape which just vanishes. But if you think about it, this is also a kind of a box. There is dimension to it. It's just much slimmer. So you have a square cross section, then you have a rectangular cross section, and then it's all just extruded out to give us dimension. So we are going to illustrate these in at least three ways. So we will make a pencil sketch of those boring metal gray toasters. Then we will make a pen illustration with just pen, and then we will use pencil and watercolor. And if time permits, we can also incorporate a little bit of color pencil in this. There's a lot of opportunity for that. So let's start with pencil sketching. The first, oh, sorry. The first specimen that we have. So when you are sketching anything, remember that it is important to draw multiple lines to indicate angles, perspective. In the in-person classes, I often notice that the students start drawing the line of the toaster like this. And that does not always give you the best output. So look at starting with the line that is in the foreground, that looks the straightest. Then just measure the distance on the side. And all this is visual. I'm not giving you any proportion today. I want you to be able to visually capture this. Make multiple lines and make them very light. And then make the sides which would be at an angle. Because there is a perspective in this, there is a chance that the line or the angle at the bottom might be steeper and the angle at the top would be slightly shallow. But if you don't see it, don't make it. So construct the entire cuboid first. All the elements also can be marked with a few lines. It is very important to be able to see the final image in these lines. Even if you don't see it on a blank page, eventually we want to be able to see the lines of the object on the blank page also. In the beginning, it always starts with something like that. So what do you look for? You will try to see whether you are getting the proportions right. So you have angles, length, length of line, proportion, which means the spaces in between could be size, space. So it is perfectly possible to look at that object and very objectively ask each of these lines, are you at the right angle, correct angle, not right angle? Are you in the right place compared to all the other lines? What is your length, how far you should go? At this stage itself, all these answers can tell you what adjustments to make. Now, it may not happen on day one, but Even on your 10,000th picture, these are the factors that you have to answer. So I normally start off with anything that I find easiest to make. In this case, I could start from drawing this side and then just extrude it to the left. Or sometimes I find it easy to start with the smallest item, which would be this knob. So I have drawn a line for where that knob should be, and I see the left face of the knob. So I'm just going to make a rectangle or another cube where the knob should be. It's not a cube. We are going to have to cut some parts out of it. But making that cube helps me to see whether I have the angle right, the placement right. What is the distance between this corner and this corner, this corner and this corner? And once that is done, then I can start adding the joints between the panel on the front, middle and the side. Using that, I can draw the lines required on the sides, just the panels, the joint between the panels. Once you get this right, you effectively have made the panel. This goes straight, I guess. So look at all these curves. And then you can draw the outside part. Now as I'm drawing this, I realize that my knob has to come very close to this edge. So I'm going to bring the joint inward a little bit and the edge of the toaster here. If you feel you need to make corrections, you make them after you have made the corrected line. So I'll make this line, and just so that I don't get too confused, if I choose to, I can erase that line that is outside, but I rarely do this. When I shade the whole thing, those lines will not even be visible. Then draw the rest. It's as simple as that. So in simple objects, you should challenge yourself to get very accurate proportions. A lot of times, I know in class we do lots of complicated objects. So when we do something as simple as this, I sometimes imagine there's some groaning coming saying, oh no, I think we've done this before. Why do we have to do this? It's so simple. I want to do something more challenging. But it is often the case that the simplest objects can throw you for a loop. Now there is a metal base which just follows the line of the base of or the bottom edge of the toaster, and then you have these little stands on the side which have an angle sideways. So the turn, you'll notice, doesn't come right below this, it turns somewhere over here. These are the lines that are very, very important to show that the bottom part comes outward a little bit. If you'll end up making the curve right below this and make the side line parallel to the lines above that, it will look like it's a vertical edge, but that's not the case. And on the other side, you see the inside edge of that stand as well. So make sure that you make these two lines parallel. You won't believe, these are the tiny things that our brain lands up looking for to a certain, not necessarily consciously, but gets its data from something as simple as this. And when you don't draw your illustration accurately, you feel something could have been different. Everything else seems fine, but little things like these can make the picture look odd. Now to draw those, uh, what are they called? I don't want to call them holes on top. Draw the edge first, and then draw parallel lines into the metal, making sure that at least visually you make these lines in such a way that those two uh, dark patches are symmetrical, identical, and equidistant as seen in the picture. So, what word could we use for this? I'm sure there's a very cute technical word. It escapes me now. Okay, after this has been drawn, mark the areas that you need to shade first. Because this is just a shading exercise, you can actually mark them with like an outline. On metallic objects, this will land up looking quite interesting. These sharp edges. Now we don't see the uh, this knob too clearly, but you can see that there is a curved line on this side and the same curved line on the foreground side, and then there is just a little concave shape which, if you've used a toaster or any such appliance, you know that it is just an ergonomic addition to help you push the lever in the right direction wherever you need to add force. So you will notice that only on the side, the rest will look plain. And of course, you will have right in the center, so mark the center line on the top, and just below that, emerging from the bottom, you will draw a slit for its own attachment. Now, I think that my knob is looking slightly tailor, so I'm going to make that adjustment. Right, now we have a highlight here. The shape of the shadow is quite dark. There are some reflections which are also dark. You can draw an outline for that. When there are reflections or when you are drawing metallic objects and you see reflections, please don't try to think what that could be. It's completely immaterial. But if you see it and it is creating some shape, just try to accurately make that shape on the device. Okay, now metallic shading can have different techniques. Like over here, you can start off with a few streaks, you can leave some space in between, and then you do a dark to light, coming almost to this point where there is a highlight. And then it becomes dark again. You will often see that metals do not have just one flat shape or one flat shade. So as you make these dark and light shades, you will eventually make the object look metallic. Depending upon the medium or material that at hand, you'll notice that plastics do not, well, they have the option of, actually all objects do, depending upon how they're finished. They sometimes are very glossy and sometimes they're a little dull. So this is a dull plastic, it's not very glossy, but it does have a highlight along some of the edges. Now we can leave our metal shading just like this. But there is one more thing you can do. Very, very lightly, you can shade a little bit from very, very light to no shading at all, so that the rest of the metal also looks like there is something to it. So everywhere you will see that metal has a little gray color, so you can just go over it like this. Some places you will see that it's darker on the left, like on the top over here. On the sides, because the top is extruding, so that will look a little shiny. I'm I'm ignoring all the other illustrations, all the other not illustrations, metal patterns or embossed designs. And even here, I am shading the entire body a very light to no shading at all. And if you've used a nice soft lead pencil, go over this section with your finger to smoothen it just a little bit. Then in the dark section, you'll notice that the dark part starts really from the bottom edge of that reflection, not the top. There is a dark edge to the rim between the two metal sections. There's a highlight here, very bright highlights here. Now, when you're drawing these shapes, keep in mind that something like this, the horizontal line of this, just this section, is in perspective. So it matches these supposed horizontal lines. If you make it any other shape, chances are that it will create a certain distortion and your object will not look like it is metallic or it is not 3D, one of the two or both. Now remember the bottom part, the rim that we had made at the bottom, that too has a shade along the top edge of the rim, like it's got a horizontal, vertical, and then or a horizontal and a side. So the horizontal top has a dark shade, a highlight over here along the edge, and then dark again. So this gives us a good line of contrast. And the rest is gray. Often, when we are making things like these hollows, which are supposed to be very deep, we don't get a sense that it is hollow. It looks a bit like a stripe. Like in this case, what's to say that these are not patterns and this is not a stripe? So, my trick is look at the edge of this shape in the foreground. So that is something that's closer to us, which is the V shape you see. And darken that side a little more. This will automatically start making it look as if this is a slit and it is fairly dark and deep. Can you see the difference between the two? The one on top is looking like a stripe. The one at the bottom is looking like there is depth. We can do that to everything that has depth. Just on the side that's closer to us, make a dark edge on the inside of that shape. The logic is quite simple. When you look at something like this, you see the deeper side closer to the edge on your side. That's this side, not that side. And that is why you'll notice the depth only touching the front edge of that slit, and on the further edge there is more light because that is closer to the edge on that side. So many of these things, when I tell you, I'm just drawing your attention to it. This is not something that you have to memorize. Okay, now let's darken the base. Now, in the interest of saving time, I would shade this vertically, not horizontally. And I would leave some spaces on the corner unpainted or unshaded, just as stripes. It's easier in the front rather than trying to shade on the curve, and then I will shade long strokes along the side like this. So even with this, you can see that highlight looks quite pretty. And in a few places, I'll enhance the line between these sections, preferably not on or through the highlight. And you'll see how that little bit just looks like a metallic or even a plasticish shine. The inside part over here can be shaded dark. So we can keep making more and more details in this. A tip for pencil shading. I have recently noticed that there is a difference in how students are shading and how I am shading. And again, all these things I can see better in the in person classes because I can see them hold the pencil and shade. So I want to just go over this one more time. When you are shading, observe whether your entire hand is moving like this or whether your fingers are moving like this. If your fingers are moving, then you can make very light lines and very even shading. But if your entire hand is moving, then you might have spaces in between that are unfilled. So what I realized is that the ability to shade very lightly is a little tough. And to develop that, practice shading just with your fingers, not with your entire hand, in very tiny spaces. Because you obviously don't need your whole hand for that. There are always these unfilled spaces between dark or within dark sections that need special attention. So when you go right into that part and try to make that tone even, you notice that you firstly have to move very slowly. You move only your fingers, and you can also modulate pressure much better. Over time, that will develop your palm muscles. That's the muscles over here, this section. And you are able to do this exercise with much more ease. So when I've often said, just hold it lightly and shade, and my in-person class students, I see they are just in so much pain trying to do that, hold it lightly. So I noticed what they were doing and what they could do, how they could change. Okay, how are your toasters looking? Okay, the next one I want you to do is let's do the blue and white. But we will make this in pen. Yashasvi, how are you doing? Could you turn on your video, please, so I can keep an eye on you? Thank you. Do you have a micron pen?
Yeah, I
Oh,
have.
all right. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to make this with the pen. So maybe just observe first. Our object is already like this, right? It is in perspective, but there's too many things happening and we have to draw it directly in pen. Just expect that the shape and proportion and everything is going to look very distorted. but don't worry about it. That is what will make the object look very cute. So when you have to do something like this, working with a pen, one strategy is start with something that is small and build from there. Here we started making the entire form and then started building from there. But in this case, choose something that's a small form that you can expand out of. So I'm going to make the knob. Yes, Sweet, I want you to keep the pencil down and just observe now, okay? Give me just 5 minutes and I want to show you this. So I am visualizing that my toaster is going to be in this much space, more or less. It's like a square space. And somewhere in that square, I have this partition, and then there's a knob, then there's a left side, right side. So spend some time in visualizing what your object is going to look like on blank paper. Now, to start the knob, you would think that the logical way to start is to make the circle. But I will actually start with that curve. And that curve sits inside a circle. And then that sits inside another circle. Let me finish this whole thing and then you can make it. Then to the left of it is one circle, which in this situation looks like an oval. And each of them will have an edge on this side on the right. You'll notice that my hands are pretty wobbly, lines are wobbly. Then I can draw the side. But I can't draw a vertical line because there is no vertical line. So I will draw just that metallic rim going all the way. This is the bottom of the toaster. From here I'll draw top of the toaster. It looks bigger on the left than on the right. These two curves will come one on top of the other. And then you have a curve going up. This curve is not as tall. And then you have, they both meet somewhere on the right of this line. Bring one line from here, bring this line from there, and join it. So this is going to be a little tricky, but it is super fun to make. We have the two slits for the toast going in like this. There's a knob, and then there's its own slit which has got a rim as well, and then there's some kind of branding and stand. And I think that's it. So even if your lines are completely warped, this will look like a cute toaster if you let it. Do you want to try it now? I'm going to give you 10 minutes for this. It is 20 past 10 and I do not want you to spend too much time on this. Make it fun. If you feel you want to make any corrections, go over those lines. And because there's no pencil involved, no eraser is needed. Okay, now let's proceed with the toaster. I want you to now try doing a little bit of shading with pencil over here. So there's a gray section in the toaster. There are some grays over here. There's a little bit of gray over here. So we are using the pencil as a shading tool, not as a drawing tool. There is some gray shading on this side, then there's a highlight, and you'll notice how even over here it is dark to light. Use your finger to just smudge and blend. See, just this little bit is good. Then use the eraser to maybe make some sharp edges, some sharp highlights. You can also use the pencil to shade this section, the metal section on top, the two slits. I am deliberately doing it very casually, just to test the effect of a rendering that is just as imprecise as the drawing part which we've done in pen. Now something like these knobs, these are great to shade in pencil. So you will make a highlight, shade this whole knob in gray, and then a C-shaped dark section on the opposite side of the highlight. It's a very simple technique. Draw some dark lines on the bottom edge of this metallic strip. Remember to leave some highlight in this metal strip. Just in the center is also fine. And then we have the circular knob, that is also metallic. So there you will have maybe some V-shaped, like a wide V-shaped highlight. And then you can maybe also extend this further into where we have this blue section. I am shading it really shabbily and smudging it with my finger. There is a shadow here. Are you able to see all these grays now? Now, after you've done all the shading, here's the fun part. Now we will put watercolor on it. This is something we avoid because the moment you put watercolor on pencil, you won't be able to erase it. So we've already made the gray section. If you want, you can go over the gray section with a very light watercolor gray, but I'm going to avoid that. I'm making a very watery cerulean blue. And now I'm just going to put an even wash through the bottom section. Of course, some places I'll leave a highlight, like over here. dodge around the buttons. This is just one even tone wash. It will look dark where you have shaded it in pencil, and it will look light where you haven't. It's just a light wash of cerulean blue. And just with this, you are able to create a dimensional illustration. We would have to do so much of jugaad to try to make a dark side, a light side, then put a wash here and there. Nothing wrong with that. But we never think of using pencil as also a shading agent. Okay, how's it looking? Oh, nice. One second, Anka, show me again. You were looking very tiny. Aha, nice. How cute, na?
Yeah, it's looking really nice.
It's so
It,
soft.
uh,
The shading makes it so soft and light.
the effect is really nice.
After this dries, we can make some of the sections darker also. Again with pencil. You don't need to do pen work. Ah, nice. Yeah, Susan, yours also can be a little darker in the foreground afterwards. Let's see, we can do that later. How are you doing, SSV?
It's turning out fine, but I think I still need to color it. I took a little longer
Or
while shading it.
okay, sure. Remember that your color is very light, so you just need to touch the brush to the surface, take the color on the palette, and add water to it. You don't need too much, okay?
Yeah.
Very nice, Dai. You did a second stroke here, extra. Ka. Okay, that we have to resist somehow.
Uh, it's very hard to resist.
I know.
You
Okay, now for the last one, we will
have to
make that.
know when to stop. You have to tell yourself, stop, 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 stop.
Yeah, that is so true. So, and it takes a while, but you need to. So, you do one wash. One rule is never go back on the wash. So, it's like a breakup. Once it's behind you, you don't look back. Then, if you feel you want to do something, let the whole thing settle. So, that's like how hindsight works. Huh? When everything is settled, you can always have objectivity. So, once the color settles, then you know whether you need any action or not, and then you can decide what action and where much better. When the color is wet, everything is volatile. You should not take any decisions when things are volatile. All right, let's make that smeg toaster now. This is a little complex, I would say, in the fact that all its edges are rounded. So it is almost like a toast itself. Like a widened, fattened toast or like a loaf. So it might be a little difficult to make. So we are going to mix the two techniques that we've done before, and except not make this in pen first. Make the drawing of the shape and then draw the or paint the illustrated part in color pencil and watercolor if you have that. So here we go. We will make. Remember how we made the lines for the first toaster? Make the what you see as the line on top, the bottom, edges. So first make the cube shape, like a brick. Then wherever you feel the need to round things, like over here on top, I'm rounding it like this, you can change those shapes as if you are sculpting out of a cube. So this shape is somewhere between a cube and a cylinder. It has a squarish or flattish edges, sides, but it has a roundness which almost looks like it can't decide whether it wants to be a cube or it wants to be a cylinder. Hi Garima.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Garima, we will do the Susan's thing after 11.
After 11. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come then.
All
Okay.
right. Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Remember how these knobs are also the button, or sorry, the rod of the knob is sideways. I mean, it's a little at an angle because that angle matches the angle of the sides. There is a knob of on the side over here, which is essentially a cylinder. So let me briefly show you how to draw cylinders. You start off with two dots, draw an oval between the two dots, extend two lines from the side and make a line parallel, a curve parallel to the curve in the foreground, in the bottom. And the same thing I can make sideways. And the thickness of my oval is on the left, so that's how I will draw it. So in this case now, I can draw an oval which is on the body, and then I can pull that outward. because it's easier to draw that than go draw the arbitrary circle or oval on the outside and then take it onto the body. Make sure you've got all these edges fine. The stand is a very odd shape, so you could trip yourself on when making this stand. On the side, on the left, it's especially it looks really uh, distorted, and on the right there's hardly anything visible. So you can just make a little bump like that on the right. Now to make the slits of the toast, I'll draw a line through the center of this oval curve here. And then make two lines which are parallel to what I see as the sides. And between those, I will draw the slits like this. So if ever you're in doubt about whether or not your lines are in the given perspective, keep changing the angle on the sides and see, is this looking better? Is this looking better? Is this parallel? Or should I make it like this? Would that be parallel? That's all. Since the overall design of the toaster has ovals or edges, all these edges will have to be rounded. When you are rounding a rectangle or rectangular shape in perspective, this is how you have to view that. Say you have a square. If you want to round the edges of a square, all you do is round it like so, right? And it becomes a nice soft shape. But suppose we want to make that into a slit, like is the case with our toaster. Alright, from the top when you see it, you see an oval shape here, almost an oval shape over here. But what if we have to see it in perspective? You can easily draw the shape, and it's rounded. You can easily draw the parallel lines. But when you're rounding it, there's a problem here. Because one side is going to be a very short turn, and its adjacent sides are going to have a very long, soft turn. If you make the same turn on both sides, then you will flatten your perspective. So remember, opposite ends have very short, sharp turns, and the other opposite will have very wide circles. So by that I mean here the circle is only so much around which the line turns. Over here the circle could be this large. You don't have to know how large, you just have to notice that this one end is going to turn in an acute angle and one is going to turn across an obtuse angle, so it's going to be really wide. Okay, I think that you might need that over here. Okay, who has joined? Now when it comes to lettering and design, if you're comfortable with it, make the box where that lettering has come. That's usually going to be two parallel lines, and they will be parallel in a sense that they will honor the rules of perspective. When you want to write the letters in that too will change according to perspective. So here we have 4 letters. make a line in the center and then split the two halves to accommodate 4 letters. This often is the case that you see the center, well, we often make this without looking for the center. So that's something that you have to make a line for and see whether it looks more or less center. A lot of distortion has occurred because we are looking at the object from the side. Now again with letters, our letters are smeg. It's hard enough drawing the letters straight, and then you're expected to draw them in perspective. So what happens in perspective is that all these letters become tilted. Okay? I just want you to see what happens here. If this fits in a box, the box of that letter itself has tilted, right? So the letter is going to appear like this. It's not taking a letter like this and turning it on its side. It is squished one way and another. Both the M's are touching the sides and the tips are at so and so distance, so the distortion would be like this. And so on and so forth. So you have E and G. If I just tilt the letter, it would have become see the difference? These letters are tilted. These are skewed. This is a tilt and this is a skew. Can you see the difference? So now you can use maybe a paper tape or something to write the letter first on top of it. Oh, sorry. I have to write S, M, E, G. So write them as if they were straight. You don't need to, but if you feel more comfortable, write them first on a rough sheet. Then you know how it fits and how to distort it. So all the vertical lines remain vertical. Oh, it's even smaller. Sorry. This is huge. See? Alright, now we can start the decoration bit. So mark the sections that have very, like there's a light color blue and a dark color blue. So there are light blue colored stripes on which there's a dark blue colored design. all the light blue color is going to be in watercolor, and the dark blue is going to be in. Okay, then we have the bottom. Oh, there is a proper base for the bottom. I didn't even notice that. Now when I'm making the design, I'm noticing that the design is slightly higher up. Now even this design, make the shape first, like the center line of the design first, and then make these patterns around them. All the designs will be distorted in the same way. So draw the basic lines of these acanthus. Next, for the next year's calendar, I've already marked that we will do acanthus leaves for once.